Okay, welcome everyone. I know that people will be trickling in, but I also always want to be conscious of the fact of those of you who are on time. So um, I'm Donna Ward. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area, and we have a great program tonight on all things voting in Essex County. Um, it seems incredible to me that the summer has already flown by and we now are deep into the election season. So it's time to make sure that everyone is well aware of everything having to do with voting in Essex County and that any questions that people have are answered. So we're going to be recording this session tonight. And for those of you who have friends who couldn't see it tonight, it will be available and we'll send it out to all the registrants. Before we get a kickoff on our program, I just want to make a plea for those of you who are on this Zoom tonight, which is to urge you to go to our League of Women Voters of Montclair website. I'll put that in the chat because we're now in the final crunch of voter registration. You know, as we all know, voter registration ends October 15th. So now in these next couple of weeks, we have a push on to really complete a lot of voter registration. If you have an interest in just jumping in and helping out, go on our website and you can just sign up for a slot at one of our voter registration events. I know many of you will have your own events as well, but just as a reminder, we only have a couple of short weeks to make sure that we get everyone that we can registered in Essex County. So before I introduce our host for this evening, I do want to, one of our community partners and co-sponsors wanted to make a few welcome remarks too. So I'd just like to introduce Tracy Mumford from the North Jersey Lynx, and she's a member of the North Jersey Lynx Legislative and Public Affairs Committee. Tracy, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Donna, and good afternoon, powerful women. First of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity. The North Jersey chapter of the Lynx Incorporated is honored to certainly partner with the League of Women Voters in this initiative and to join women all over the country who will be voting and pushing the vote this year. The Lynx Incorporated, also, I actually want to thank some of my Lynx sisters who I see on the call, including the head of programming, Jamel Straker. So I'm glad that our sisters are here as well. The Lynx Incorporated is an international not-for-profit corporation. We were established in 1946, and our membership consists of over 17,000 professional women, all of African descent, and nearly 300 chapters located in 41 states, the District of Columbia, also the United Kingdom and the Bahamas. We are one of the nation's oldest, largest, and we like to think most powerful women's organizations. And one of the most important things for us is to ensure that the women of all of the U.S. and in the diaspora as well, that they have a voice in what we are doing and where our country is going. And that is why this partnership is so important to us. And we look forward to encouraging women to vote. We are here, we are representing our national organization, international organization, and we are excited to raise the bar for not only registration, but also to engage in so much more civic engagement across the country. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'll turn it back over to Don.
Thank you, Tracy. And again, welcome and thanks to the Lynx for all the work that you're doing in helping get out the vote and registering voters. Now I'd like to introduce our host for the evening, Andrea Anderson. She's a board member of the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area, and she's our Director of Advocacy. And she's going to introduce tonight's guests. And again, I'll just remind everyone to remain muted while she discusses the format of our evening. Andrea?
Thank you, Donna. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Anderson, and I would just like to welcome and thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight for all things voting in Essex County. In terms of the format, again, this is being recorded and will be on the League's website, and the format will be informal. I'll be asking questions and to help inform voters, of course. And if anyone has any questions that you would like to ask, please put them in the chat and we'll ask for questions and comments from the audience at the end. So right now, I would like to introduce Jennifer Ferry and Julianne Grosso, who work in the Essex County Clerk's office. And I invite them to tell us a little bit about themselves and as well as their background and their role in the Essex County Clerk's office.
Great. My name is Jennifer Ferry. I've been with the Essex County Clerk's office for 18 years. I've been with the elections for about 16. Me and Chris Durkin are hand to hand. I'm the election supervisor over here, so I help him in every aspect of all the election process that we do on our end. Little background, I have 2 kids, 21 and 19 now, so no more getting old. It's pretty much.
Okay, great. And I am Julianne Grosso. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. I've been with the County Clerk's office for the past 5 years. I started initially in the passport and notary department. And then 2 years ago, I had the pleasure and privilege of being brought over to the election unit to be the executive assistant to the clerk. And pretty much doing that, I'm one of Jennifer's right hands. So the amount of knowledge I've gained from Jennifer in the past 2 years and Chris Durkin, of course, has been immense. I live in West Caldwell. I have 5 beautiful children. They range from 10 to 20. I can't believe that. And thank you, Tracy. And I am currently the president of the West Caldwell School Board. And I have been on that school board for 2 terms. I'm running for my 3rd term this November unopposed. So I am going to be blessed to be back on it. And I've been the president of the school board for the past 2 years, and it really is a privilege to serve my community in that way. And then being here in this department to be able to learn really about elections and learn how much I didn't understand about elections, even as a candidate, and how much I understand about it now. So looking forward to sharing with all of you this evening.
Thank you, Jennifer and Julianne, for those introductions. Before we get started with our questions, I would just like to take this time to thank our co-sponsors who the League works with on voter registration and education. And those co-sponsors are Latinos of Montclair, AAPI New Jersey, Asian American and Pacific Islanders, AIM, Aging in Montclair, the Links Incorporated of North Jersey chapter, and my sorors of the Montclair Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, who are also here tonight. Thank you. So let's get right down to the questions. So for my first question, what were the voter turnout results for the special election held on September 18 for Congressional District 10?
Okay, so the election results are still unofficial. However, I don't see them changing too much. But as far as turnout, we had 6.85%. So not too high. Tough time for an election, summer, you know, a lot of folks were unaware of it. So obviously we would always kind of hope to increase those numbers. But overall, there were about 19,000 registered voters who could vote in that district. I mean, in that congressional district. And I'm sorry, not 19,000, 282,000 and 19,000 voted, roughly.
Okay, do we have a time frame of when we may have?
When we're certified, yeah, we're gonna look to certify. The cure date is Sunday, this coming Sunday, which is the
28th, I believe.
Yeah, so we're gonna look to do it that Monday.
Okay, and can you also explain how this will also be on the November ballot?
So this term that was filled was only for 5 weeks. So the Democratic County Committee had a separate meeting to elect Monica as their candidate to be placed on the ballot for the general. So that's how she got placed onto the ballot for the general election. So they had to have a majority of a vote, and she won that, and then she was able to be placed on the ballot.
And her term, her office for November will then fill the term from January, I believe, congressional officer, 2 years?
Yes.
2 years. So she'll serve only from when she's sworn in till December 31st, and then the winner of the November 5th race, which will be between Carmen Bucco again and LaMonica MacGyver, will determine who takes the seat for the full term, the full 2-year term, starting January 1st, 2025.
And that's for Congressional District 10. Thank you.
Congressional
Yes.
district, yes, the late Congressman Payne's seat.
Yeah. Now, of course, what are other important dates to remember other than the November 5th presidential election? Can you talk about that?
So, so we're gonna start one with, as you guys mentioned, voter registration deadline, which is October 15th. And then October 23rd is when we're gonna send out sample ballots for the general election. Early voting will start October 26th and run to November 3rd. The last day to apply for a vote by mail via mail is October 29th. The last day that someone can come in person to our office for a vote by mail is November 4th. So those are the key dates that we're kind of working.
And if someone has to come into your office, what type of identification would they need to bring?
No ID needed for a vote by mail.
Okay. You mentioned the early voting period. Can you give us a little bit about the early voting process and the time frame for early voting?
Yes. So there's going to be 10 locations again throughout the county. We will have this information placed on our website, and we also have an app that will explain a little more that people can download, and that information will be utilized on there. And I believe the BOE also puts this information on their website, as well as the New Jersey Division of Elections will have this also placed on their website. So basically, it's going to start October 26th to November 3rd. Our Monday to Saturday hours are always from 10 to 8 p.m. and our Sunday hours are from 10 to 6 p.m. So voters can go throughout these locations in those timeframes and cast their votes.
And can you tell us how voters with disabilities would be accommodated?
So I can't speak to that. I'm not sure if they do have any kind of arrangements for voters with disabilities in these locations. I know every location is ADA acceptable, and but I'm not certain of any kind of arrangements. I'm not certain if the BOE makes arrangements with voters or just say
Hearing impaired.
if you got like different leagues and organizations help ADA voters, assisting them.
Now, would they be able to contact the county clerk's office to get more information on, if they would need some type of accommodation?
So, I mean, so if we could just discuss their accommodation, like, is this transportation or is this?
No, just, in terms of voting, whether they're hearing impaired.
Well, there's ADA machine, there's ADA machines in every location that, yes, they'll be assisted in there. Absolutely.
So there are machines for anyone.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, great. That was really what I was trying to get to. Okay.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about transportation.
No, not transportation, no. Okay, so you already mentioned the deadline for, well, actually, no, you haven't. We talked about vote by mail, but what is the deadline to return the vote by mail ballot?
So that would be, it's gotta be, it has to be postmarked, by election day, which is November 5th. And then the last day for the BOA to accept them would be November 11th.
So basically, they have to be postmarked by November 5th. However, they have to arrive in the office by November 11th. So, we're looking at relying on the United States Postal Service, correct?
Yes. Anyone who utilizes the ballot drop boxes, those ballots have to be in the ballot drop box by 8 p.m. and then they'll shut the ballot boxes.
So to clarify, if they use the ballot boxes at the polling locations or wherever they are.
Not polling locations, yeah, wherever the list of, majority of them are in the front of the municipal buildings, but those locations again will be published on our website, our app, the Board of Elections, and the New Jersey Division of Elections of all the locations. And also in our vote by mail packets that we put out, we have an information and pretty much a guide on how to use the vote by mail with all those locations on there as well.
By 8 p.m. on election day.
Yes.
Okay. And so talking again about vote by mail, what would happen if someone does not really receive their ballot or somehow is accidentally destroyed?
So this happens often with people making mistakes on their ballots or whatnot. We do have a second ballot request form that we, again, will be putting on our website. And then we have a email address where a person can submit that form to, and then we'll process it and go ahead and send them a second ballot out. Or a person, if they choose to decide to come into the office, we would issue them a second ballot as well. And that goes for the same if they never received it or if the ballot was damaged.
Is there another option other than getting another vote by mail ballot?
If they chose to go to the polling location, either on early voting or on election day, they will be prompted to vote provisional.
Okay, so they would receive what's called a provisional ballot.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Andre, I just want to jump in because I'm looking in the chat how Donna said, suggestion if you're trying to return vote by mail ballots close to election day, you should use the ballot drop boxes. And I am like the hub, I pick up the phone and the election, being the assistant in the office. So I always tell voters, your best bet is to always return the vote by mail in the ballot drop box. Number one, because they're monitored by security surveillance. So it's a very safe and secure way to do it. Number two, they're picked up, those drop boxes, especially as we're ramping up to the election, they're picked up multiple times a day by the Board of Elections. So they're not sitting in there overnight, right? Multiple times a day, they're running trucks to each ballot drop box, taking the ballots and bringing them back here to the county offices where they're safe and secure as well. So I always try to discourage voters, unless it's absolutely necessary, to, instead of using the post office, use your convenient ballot drop box location.
Great, thank you for the additional information, Julianne. Now, how can I find my polling location information? Where's the best site or the best way to find that out?
So there's a few ways. You could utilize, again, the New Jersey Division of Elections, and that will, that can help identify where your polling location is. And then on the sample ballots that a voter will get, we'll have also where their polling location is. And whoever calls our office, we always help and just give out wherever the polling location is as well.
And what are the hours that a voter can call your office?
We're here from 8, right now from 8 to 8 at night,
Yeah.
8 in the morning to 8 at night. But yeah, from 8 in the morning till about 4:30, where someone will answer the phone and help out.
Okay. Now, how can a voter confirm that their vote by mail ballot was actually received?
Again, if you utilize the New Jersey Division of Elections, it's called Track My Ballot. And once the Board of Elections receives the ballot and they scan it in, it's going to give that voter the date. So just say, for example, so certain households will have their vote by mail today, right? If they decided to utilize the ballot drop box, it was Friday, and our drivers went around, picked them up, and they scanned them in, it could legitimately show, just say tomorrow's date, if they did it all, 9/27, and it'll show the date that they scanned it in.
Okay.
And again, too, we have voters call all the time, say, can you just double check for me that my ballot was received, and we can go into the voter registration system and we can see if it's been scanned in by the Board of Elections, we can see, and we will readily and happily give that information to voters at the clerk's office.
Thank you. Are there any days or times during the week where you may not receive as many calls? That may be a better time to call. I mean, is it busier in the morning? Is it busier in later day? Or is it just all day?
So here's the thing, obviously this election, there's a lot of, everyone wants to get out there and vote earlier than say past elections. There's a lot of stuff going on with this election. So I'm gonna say two things. I think we need to be patient with the amount of, so let me jump back for a second. Right now, we sent out about 63,000 vote by mails. And we sent out about 1,300 federal ballots. So we have a lot of ballots out there, and a lot of folks are gonna vote right away and are gonna want that question answered and whatnot, but it's gonna take a little bit to get them back, sort them, and scan them in. So, we're all trying our hardest, right, to get everything done as quick as we possibly can.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I'd like to jump at Jennifer. I think what people don't understand is like they think the county clerk's office, oh, there must be a staff of 40 people working there to handle all of the elections for 63,000 plus, like how many voters in Essex County. There's 7 of us in the clerk's office. There's 7 of us. So you have to figure at any given point in time, there could be 5 lines lit up, someone's doing something, everyone else is grabbing a line, someone might go to voicemail. I personally, and Jennifer knows that, like, if you leave a voicemail and my voicemail, you will always get called back. I mean, that's a given. I call every voter back. It might not be the same day, but definitely within 24 hours, they're getting a return phone call. But we try our best, but I think that's important for the public to know, like, it might be deceiving thinking, oh my goodness, it's government, it's the county, there must be so many people on staff, but literally just in our office alone, there's only 7 of us doing the job, doing a very, very big job.
So patience is the key during.
Please, yes.
Yeah.
On top of answering the phones, right, we just got inundated with a mailing. So I would think in the last 3 days, we probably processed close to 2,500 vote by mails that we have to get in and get ready to stuff to send out, because everyone's patiently waiting for them.
Wow.
And that we do ourselves. Like the initial mailing is done by a mail house with our printer, but then everything else that comes to us afterwards. So now that's done, right? The initial mailing of the vote by mails is out there. Anything coming in now is our job. So that's why we're here like 12-hour days, Saturdays, a Sunday, even if we need to. Sometimes it could be 7 days a week in election season to make sure that every voter gets their ballot and is able to participate in the democratic process.
Wow. Okay. You guys are accomplishing a lot during this election season. Can you explain how provisional voting works and what is it for some of us who may not know?
Sure. So, or if a voter goes on election, I'm just going to use election day right now. If a voter goes at election day, they go to the polling location that is assigned on their sample ballot, we'll say. They go, they check in, and the poll worker now offers what we call provisional ballot. It's a paper ballot, again. Then what happens is they vote their ballot, okay? It's secured in an envelope, and it's sealed up on election night, brought back to the county, and they vet those provisional ballots at the last part of our election when we tally election results. So majority of people who are provisional voters happen to be people who are vote by mail voters. So either like kind of what we discussed earlier, just say maybe they never received their ballot or they destroyed their ballot. Not they destroyed it, but it was destroyed or it was damaged. They decided they'd rather go on election day and vote. They vet those last. They just want to make sure that there's not a vote by mail vote or a vote by mail ballot already handed in from that voter. So they hold on to those last, and then that's when they count those last. Other times people are registered provisional voters as if someone moves and they don't update their address. So now they're going to the polling location that just say their neighbor goes to, right? But in the state voter registration, just say they're still in Maplewood. So they haven't transferred over yet. So that's going to automatically prompt the poll worker to issue a provisional ballot. Those are the two main reasons, really. Now that we're digital poll pads, you don't really see where, you can't find a voter anymore. If there's a misspelling of a name or something of that nature, might prompt the poll worker to give a provisional too. But if you bring your sample ballot, there's a barcode and they could scan that and it'll automatically bring you up. So it can, those things can eliminate, having a provisional ballot handed out.
Okay.
But the vote by mail, honestly, is the majority of the provisionals. Majority.
Okay, thank you. Now,
And just, oh, Andrea, I just want to say, and just tag
Yeah.
teaming on that, is that we've been getting a lot of phone calls even recently saying, oh, you know what, I don't want to vote by mail, what can I do? And at this point, there's deadlines, and Jennifer could speak more of that, but where we're telling voters now, unfortunately, it's too late. The vote by mails are already out there, right? You already have a ballot being sent to you that you're going to receive imminently. So your next choice is, they'll say, well, I understand what's my future choice. So we'll direct them, listen, you can vote your vote by mail, you could vote provisionally, and then starting in January, after the new year, we will put up what's called an opt-out form, OPT-OUT, opt-out form on the clerk's website. And they can fill that out. And we always tell them, please fill it out ASAP. It can be emailed over to us, and then we will opt them out for the next upcoming elections. But for every election, I don't think they realize that there is a deadline. It is pretty far in advance, right, to opt out, because we have to
typically
cut
is the deadline, the cutoff to opt out, mail in.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Our ballots were we started mailing our ballots, so not in Essex County, the federal ballots, September 23rd. We cut our list. I call it cut our list. So we cut our vote by mail list to give to our printer, because like I said, we did like 63,000. So we have to go and inkjet every envelope. So it takes a while to prepare it and then be able to, they stuff it with all the different envelopes and whatnot. So we work out like a couple weeks in. So like 2 weeks before before we call it, cut the list, I had to send it to the printer to organize. So we have to stop letting people opt out at that point.
So is there typically a time frame that you guys have? Is it 2 months prior to an election, 3 months, or,
No, it's about, so before the vote by mails go out, let me say, I just don't remember, hold on, the exact, I think it's 45 days.
So a voter would have to think, if they want to opt out,
Yeah,
it's 45 days prior to any election, if they're considering opting out of mail-in ballot.
yeah, so we start 45 days mailing out before an election.
So then prior to 45 days then?
Prior to 40, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Could you explain how the county has safeguards in place for preventing voter fraud?
Sure. So like we stated, there's 3 separate offices, right? We have 3 different offices that this way, not one office can possess a greater amount of power or strength over all 3 offices. So each office, it does have its checks and its balances. I can speak on our side. So for us, when we get our vote by mail applications, right? We vet them against the state voter registration system. So their signatures are on there. If it doesn't compare and it's off, now listen, we're not gonna, if I sign with a J and Ferry, right? And I sign Jen Ferry, but you could see it's still my handwriting. No, we would not deny that. But if you get applications and you get a stack and you notice it's all kind of the same handwriting, just believe me, I've seen it all, with same signatures pretty much, then we'll absolutely, deny all those applications, send letters out to the folks, letting them know that their applications were rejected. And here's what's either update your signature or please contact us if you have any questions and we'll walk them through it. So that's some of, where we do our, checks and balances when we receive our applications and whatnot.
So that would be considered curing a ballot, correct?
Well, curing on the other, so it's two parts. So curing would be so for when they actually return their ballot. So after they voted, we're process one to allow them to have the ballot. The second process is the cure process. So if the Board of Elections thinks the signature's off on the ballot when it's returned, they're gonna ask the voter to cure their ballot to make sure that they sent their ballot in, make sure it was them who signed their ballot.
And how long would they have to fix it?
The cure, I don't want to give you the exact, I'm not certain of the time frame, but I think it's 11 days for them to cure a ballot.
11 days back in your office or postmark?
No, for them to cure. So once the ballot, yeah, it's 11 days after the election, they have to cure their ballot.
So
Okay.
this year, the cure date would be November 16th.
Okay, so it would have to be received by November.
And on our envelopes, on our vote by mail envelopes, they ask for different things like your email address. So they'll go through email and they're allowed to email back and forth the cure letter and whatnot. So they try to make it so we could do it as quick as possible instead of just relying on the post office. They could come in person.
Okay. Is there an update or status of the county line issue? When will the ballots be redesigned? Will it be for Democrats and Republicans?
All right, so nothing has yet that I know been signed into legislation.
Sorry, could you explain to our audience what the county line issue is first? Thank you.
So there was some lawsuits last election about county lines, and then again, they wanted to go to block style balloting, where each office, you would have to do a ballot draw, and instead of going across, that it would go down. And so, for example, just say for all the presidents, we would have to put all the presidents in a ballot draw and have them go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next, Congress 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Instead of in the past when we picked between Dem and Republican, whichever would be the first line and then the second line.
Okay.
So good.
So we're looking at it going down as opposed to just going across.
Yeah,
Mhm.
in each like their own box.
Okay, and there's no update on that as of now.
There's nothing that's been signed to my knowledge yet. I do think they're trying to push it for next primary, but until we're told, we're staying the way we are.
Thank you. Let's talk about poll workers in Essex County. Has the age for being a poll worker changed? We heard that there's a new program for 16-year-olds to become poll workers being done through the schools. What schools are participating, if you know, and can you tell us a little bit about the qualifications or training to be a poll worker?
So I could tell you a little bit, I could touch a little bit just because, working next to them. I do know they do partnership with some schools, and I do know it's been very successful, and I do know the kids really seem to enjoy it. I do know they deal with a couple schools in North, Verona, Nutley,
West Essex.
West Essex. It's the only, the ones I know off the top of my head. The kids really seem to love it, and honestly, the kids are great. Put them on a poll pad. It's what they know how to do. So they're great with that aspect of being a poll worker. I don't know. I mean, they all have to have training classes. I do know that. I don't know, if they're a poll worker already and they've done it, if they have to constantly go to classes every election. But I do know over in the board, they have, I think it was Anthony, right?
Mhm.
They do have a gentleman who runs the classes, like he deals with all the schools. But like I said, yeah, they love it. They absolutely love it.
And would we be able to post something in the chat if anyone is interested in being a poll worker?
Yeah, I mean, we could, yeah, we could get, so I don't, obviously, we don't deal with poll workers, so I know online, I believe they have
The application.
the application under the Board of Elections website. I believe they have the application there.
Too.
And we do.
We do have it on,
we have
yeah.
it on our
We
app.
have it on our app that we'll talk about at the end, yeah.
Do you know if the deadline has passed yet?
I do know that they did start some training classes, so I can't speak to the deadline, but I do know they started, I think actually this week.
Okay, and we already spoke about the ballots and that they've already been mailed out. Can you speak to how voters should use them once they receive them? Kind of just recap that again when they get their ballots in the mail.
Yeah, just as soon as they get them, like I said, I know people are very anxious to vote and vote right away. You know, just take your time, vote. But just any questions, if anyone has any questions on you know, about the envelopes and am I filling this out correctly or incorrectly? We do have a instruction pamphlet that goes along with it. But I mean, of course, we're very transparent, you know, we'll answer any questions. But I think for a lot of these vote by mail voters, they've seen this before, so they're pretty used to it at this point. And I think they got it down pretty much. You know, I would like to talk about though, because you guys are probably like talk to a lot of voters and maybe eyes and ears, a lot of things. I can say, like, if you can help anyone with, especially some of the older folks, we're getting a lot more sample ballots returned voted, right? And we took the ovals away and everything, and we already crafted a letter. If we get this, we already send it back to them and state this, you know, this is not your, it's not a casted official ballot. So please go to this polling location if you'd like a vote by mail, and we also submit an application. But I know you guys might talk to a bunch of voters, so if you could just help and assist in that matter, we try to triage that as much as we can. But I think since 2020 and everyone automatically got a ballot, some of the older folks just think that that's their ballot going forward and not realizing, you know, we don't have the envelopes that go along with it and whatnot. So that's just something I'm hoping we don't get too many back this general, because, you know, it's not a valid vote, but you can spread that word.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of folks will call and they get their sample ballot, but not their vote by mail. And they'll be upset, like, why did I get a sample ballot? Did you not get my vote by mail that I voted? Every registered voter gets a sample ballot, whether you vote by mail or not. So sometimes some of the older folks, especially who know they usually vote by mail, they don't realize that that's not their official ballot. Like, they didn't get their ballot for whatever reason. So it is helpful, as you know, if the league could, like Jennifer was saying, as our eyes and ears, especially with the elderly section, who they're so passionate and they want to vote. And sometimes for some of them, it's so difficult, and our heart breaks when they call us, and we do go above and beyond to help them, but to let them know, like, listen, I keep telling everyone on the phone, if you don't have your vote by mail ballot by October 11th, to call the office. Because then we can actually look in the computer, see if you were part of the initial mailing from the mail house, if you were part of a mailing from this office, and then give them a timeline as to when they can sort of expect it. And then if they don't expect it, then help them get the second ballot request in.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea, can I just jump in, because I think they're raising a really good point. And your original question to them, to Jennifer and Julianne, was, you know, how should people be using the sample ballots? And I think there is confusion about sample ballots versus vote by mail ballots. And you know, if we at the league can certainly do this in our, you know, voter education and voter registration. We can even put a statement on our website that, to me, the sample ballot is sent to all voters to help you get ready for voting. You know, it shows you who's on the ballot, what offices are there. It'll tell you your polling location, you know, and you should use it to go through it and get ready to vote. But that's not your ballot. It's only a sample to educate you. And either if you signed up for vote by mail, then you're going to get a real ballot, which has the envelopes in it that you're going to have to fill out and send back, or you're going to be able to take that sample ballot and go to the early voting location or on election day to the polls. And that's going to help make the process of in-person voting easier. Is that a fair statement that we can say to people? I think that, and for everybody on this line, on this call who's, working with voters, I think that's an important, because it is confusing for people.
Mhm.
If older
Definitely.
people have signed up for vote by mail and this ballot comes, they're not noticing that it's a sample ballot. They think, oh gosh, I better fill this out,
Mhm.
that's where the confusion comes.
We did watermark it too,
Yeah.
that state, but it's sometimes that's hard to see and.
Yes, yes.
And two, again, like you were mentioning, you stated, our vote by mails are gonna say official vote by mail ballot, and our samples will say, official sample ballot. So that distinguish it too can maybe help,
Right. Right.
Are you finding year over year that you're getting more or less sample ballots back?
So actually it's kind of crazy. So it depends on what election, to be honest. But this year, there's a lot more people who are gonna be interested in voting. So I just don't want to see that trend where it's gonna rise, especially the later we get, to election day. So like I said, once we get them, because they'll actually, to be honest, they'll drop them off in the ballot drop boxes.
Mhm.
So as soon as we get them, they bring them right to us, and we get our letters out right away for them. So it just depends on which election, to be honest.
So you are sending a letter out to anyone who
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
sending
Yeah.
a ballot. Okay.
So Andrea, there were a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want me to raise them before they start or are you done with your questions, or do you want to, because I know these ladies wanted to talk about their app and everything too. I can ask some of these questions. Again, just so that I'm clear, when are the vote by mail ballots going out?
So they started to hit some households today.
Okay, that's what I
And-
thought. Some people have
Yeah.
already started to get them.
Some have already started, and then they're gonna now be rolling out. So today's, forgive me that I'm forgetting the days. We've just been working
Yeah.
constantly through all the weekends. So I'm always like, what's today again?
Thursday.
So by Friday, Saturday, I would think they'll be in the majority of the households.
And if they don't get them by October 11th, then they should start calling your office.
Yes.
Yeah, from the
Done.
guys in the first original mailing. So the mailing that we're keeping up with now, that's a different story. But again,
Okay.
if someone calls us, we could vet them through that, because we could see the date we entered it and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
so.
Okay. And then there was another question back to voting in person. So the question is, so if a person shows up at a voting location where they did not register because they moved, will they be turned away and told to go to the voting location of their prior address? Or will they be given a provisional ballot where they showed up?
So, again, I can't answer as to what a poll worker would do, but in my experience of hearing, how the poll workers operate, I feel like they would offer a provisional ballot for that voter.
Yes, I think that's correct, rather than have them go away. I mean, you should be registered for 30 days at the address, as we know, that you're in, that you currently reside in. But if you show up at the wrong poll location, oftentimes, yes, I think poll workers will offer them the opportunity to have a provisional ballot. Or be sent to go back to your original location, because that's really where you're registered to vote.
Yep.
Okay. And then another question is, what does it mean if a voter's registration is inactive?
So when a voter's registration becomes inactive, it's generally, election mail got returned to the commissioner of registration. So 9 out of 10 times, it's either the sample ballot, or when they send out their voter registration cards, they get returned. And then that puts them in an inactive status, and the voter just has to contact them. And I'm not certain if they're required any, say, paper documentation, or if a phone call is sufficient. But I know for us, like for our vote by mails, like when we get a voter that's inactive, we'll make a photocopy, we'll bring it down to them, and then they'll go ahead and reactivate them and take them out of that status, and then we'll go ahead and then get out their vote by mail.
And then what is the number, the telephone number that they should call if they didn't receive their vote by mail by October 11th? I'm going to put it in the chat.
Yeah, so it would be 973.
Yep.
621.
Yep.
4920. And then there'll be prompts, and they should just choose the prompt for the election department, and that'll ring right to my desk.
Okay. Great.
Because sometimes I give my direct extension and then people are like, we use it and we can't get through. I don't know if it's because there's like a whole prompt, like it's the telephone system. So it's better to just call the main one and hit the prompt for the election department.
Great. Yeah, and I'm getting a comment here from somebody, who didn't realize that sample ballots were being sent, and but was also a vote by mail person. So may have tossed, thinking they were tossing a sample ballot, but in reality may have tossed by mistake their vote by mail,
Right.
not realizing they're two different ones. Another one, a person is saying, as a poll worker, I either offer voters the option to complete a provisional ballot or give the voter the address and directions to their proper polling place. That's the textbook. That's the right answer.
Yeah,
That's
that's-
all poll workers should be
that's-
doing. Thanks for that, Shazan. Another question, are the mail-in ballots and sample ballots printed in different colors? Is the print different? Oh, that's an interesting suggestion. Yeah. What's the answer?
So the mail-in ballots are through the same color schemes. They're all white with black and red. They're different sizes though.
Yeah.
And they have, so like the sample ballot will have the instructions for early voting, where to vote, early vote, and then their polling locations. So it's just it's a different fold. It's a different style. It's distinguishably different.
Yeah, because the vote by mail is in a window envelope. It says official election ballot.
yeah.
The sample ballot is just kind of folded on its own. It doesn't have any envelopes. Like there's multiple components to the vote by mail. There's the certification envelope. There's the window envelope to put the certification in. Like, so that's how you know they are significantly different.
Right. I mean, I think that's a good way to describe to people. If you don't get something with multiple envelopes with it,
Right.
sample
Yeah.
ballot.
Yeah, that's right.
Just keep
I
it
think a lot
simple.
of people don't realize that, but if you can just quickly tell us, once the voting ends, what happens to the ballot? Where does it go? Who picks it up? If you could just kind of briefly go through that process so people know, okay, the polls are closed, now what?
Sure. So on election night at 8 o'clock, like we said, voting has finished. Two things happen, right? Ballot box drops are locked and closed, and the Board of Elections is in charge of gathering those ballots. So they'll go around to all the locations and pick up those ballots, bring them back to house.
With security?
They do not. No.
Okay.
Knock on wood, we don't need it. We've never needed that. Again, we have some time from now until election day. And if there's any kind of indication of, any kind of election tampering, threats, whatnot, all our offices have our plans in action, right? That we are ready to put forth in case of anything. So, I won't speak to that because that's the BOE, like I said, but yeah, we're ready for anything. We'll get off that topic and go back to what happens. So then, the ballots are brought back. They're in the hands of the BOE. So they will vet all those ballots and they'll receive them all. Like I said, they check all of the signatures and whatnot. And when they're good and ready to go, right, they prepare them to be open and then to scan them. Our part is we gather the election results that night. So after 8 o'clock, we send out teams to all the municipal locations we transmit the election results from election night down to here, our office. And we just go back and forth and we transfer our results up online. We have our webpage. We have our link for where we publish our election results that night. And we just do it throughout the night until everyone and all the poll workers are back and we have all our election material. And that's pretty much election night.
So they're just scanned, they're not scanned and hand counted unless.
Nothing's hand counted. Yeah, we scan everything in. They're allowed to, whatever vote by mail ballots they get by election day, they could scan in. So as during the day, they have the ability to scan in. We just cannot publicize any election results until after 8 o'clock. So once 8 o'clock comes, we can upload some of those vote by mail results along with our election day results and early voting results. So on election night, you'll see early voting, you'll see vote by mail, and you'll see election day results. You'll never see provisionals.
Because those are counted last, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes. And then
What
we'll constantly do that not election day, but we'll constantly do vote by mail uploads. So when they go, and the mail gets delivered the following day, they'll prep them, they'll vet them, they'll scan them, and then we'll upload the results. Then just constantly do the same thing day after day.
Now, if you have anyone who's overseas or in the military, how are those handled?
So they're actually one of the lucky ones. They get to email back their ballots. So they're actually getting a good amount back right now. So like I stated, we had to send them all out by September 23rd. So by the time we left September 23rd, we sent out 1,332 ballots out. Yes. So now they are in the process of same thing, receiving them, vetting them, and they can't count anything until election day, but they're receiving them back. They're voting.
Yeah, and their process is they go to the website, F as in Frank, V as in Victor, A as in Apple, P as in Peter, fvap.gov, and they fill out what's called an FPCA form, Federal Postcard Application. And then that gets emailed over to a specific email for us, federalvoter@clerk.essexcountynj.org. And then Jennifer will print them. We vet them on our end. If any of their information, their overseas address, their United States address, where they were last, anything updates their political affiliation, we give it to the Commissioner of Registration. They update their registration, give it back to us, and then we process, tag, and get them the ballot.
And then I have one last question regarding the ballots. So then the ballots are counted, they're scanned. What happens to the ballots at that point? Are you supposed to keep them for a certain amount of time? Where do the ballots then go?
So our election day ballots
Yes.
and our vote by mail ballots.
Yes.
Those are held within the Board of Elections. I'm not certain to the time frame that they have to hold on to them, but after a election, there is an audit that is done, and so that is done after the election to make sure all the election results are right and are accurate. I just don't know their exact time frame of how long they have to house ballots for. It might be forever, to be honest.
Yeah, they're doing sampling about early voting,
Yeah.
vote by mail, vote in person
Yeah,
on
they-
election day, all designed. They're auditing taking samples to make sure, numerical samples to make sure that that the counts tally, with
Yeah.
what was submitted as an action. So it's another way to make sure that the election was accurate.
Yes. And we are lucky enough not to have to take part in that. I did it in 2020 and that was something.
I can imagine with all the vote by mail.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you wanted to talk about the app?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of different ways to get some election information and recap a lot of the things we talked about this evening. So the first one is our website, which is www.essexcountyj.org. vote.essexclerk.com. And we always try to keep that as current as possible. And that's where you'll find your results on election night. Okay. On that website right now on the homepage is our general election voting. You can't really see it because it's bad, but it's a Essex County general election voting guide. So it's got FAQs, it has the ballot, the early voting locations, the dates and times of early voting. It's really a nice, quick, colorful resource right on the homepage that's easily printable for voters to do. And then Jennifer's brainchild was we launched our new election app called Essex Votes. And that's compatible with all iPhones and Androids. And you can download it for free on both of those stores, the Apple Store or the or in Google for Android users. And that's linked directly to the website. So when we upload things onto the website, it'll go onto Essex Votes, the app. Also, really why we decided to do it was if there was anything that came up urgently on election day, let's say there was, and we had this happen recently, there's a polling location change because there was construction and streets were closed and the Board of Elections had to quickly pivot and move a polling location. We can send out push notifications on the app, and those push notifications will then pop up right on your phone as long as you have your notifications turned on and say, oh my goodness, there's a polling location change, and we can target just Belleville voters, just East Orange voters, right? So that happened to us last time. So it's a very cool and convenient way for voters to stay up to date. We also do a lot of fun push notifications like, remember, tomorrow's last day for voter registration and transfer. So make sure you get it in. So those are the types of ways we're trying to communicate on a minute to minute, have like an open line of communication with voters.
Great, thank you. I think we got all the questions in the chat.
Do you want, Andrew, do you want to ask if anybody else has any questions that we can just unmute yourselves and?
Are there any additional questions? Does anyone have any question they would like to ask?
Wow, we must have been very thorough, Andrew.
Again, I'd just like to thank Jennifer Ferry and Julianne Grosso from the Essex County Clerk's Office for this presentation tonight, and just thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here and to be informed and get out the vote. Encourage your neighbors, your friends, your family, everyone you know to get out the vote. Go to our website, or there are many local organizations who are having get out the vote, registering people to vote, encouraging people to vote, check their registrations. And again, thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you to our co-sponsors.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Andrea.
Pleasure. I'm just gonna.